Vertical, I wanted to take just a moment to address something with you that's really been on my mind and actually on our staff's minds and hearts for quite a while now. And it's something that if you're not paying attention, you might miss out on. It's really something that's directing most of our efforts inside of our church, especially on Sunday morning. One thing that we believe foundationally here at Vertical is that God is two things. He's a God of order and a God of patterns. If you were to investigate nature, the world that He's created, you'll see order and patterns all over the place. In fact, if you go back to the beginning of the book in Genesis, you'll see this one word, chaos, that God was over the chaos and He brought order through creation. That's basically the story of our lives, isn't it? Especially those of us that know Jesus. We had a very chaotic story. Chaos seemed to characterize our lives, and then we met Jesus and order and patterns began to emerge. In fact, it's a great way to think about your own story, your own history. Where were things chaotic and when did things develop patterns? We actually have patterns in chaos that God revolutionizes in our story. So with that as a foundation, I just want to rewind the tape just a little bit so that you can pick up on the patterns that we are pursuing as a church. As we discuss things together in our services or in our small groups, there's a pattern to what we're pursuing, and it goes all the way back to the end of last year. So I want to take just a few minutes to create this short video to catch you up to speed so you can be looking for these patterns as we pursue knowledge and information about God together in the near future as we go throughout 2021 that's actually already mapped out for this community. So let's go back to how we ended 2020, and thank goodness we did end 2020. We discussed together a very important chapter in the book of Philippians, and these were the big ideas. That we should maintain our joy as Jesus following people, as difficult as that teaching is. Another difficult teaching following in those verses that we should be a reasonable people. I want you to remember that we connected those two things. It's very difficult to be reasonable if you've lost your joy. And then the Bible caringly addresses one other thing that happens inside of us that we all experienced last year and even at the beginning of this year, and that's our anxiety. The Bible encourages us to give a place for our anxiety to land, to take action, and that is actually prayer. That we should take our anxiety to God, and as a result, God will do some things for us. He will guard our mind, and He will guard our hearts. We started there because it's so foundational, and then we moved into what we call inside of our church, and many modern churches call, series, a grouping of weeks that pursue one idea from a lot of different angles. We take a lot of time to plan these out, and we want to make sure of one thing, that they're very helpful for you to take action in your life. So we start with Philippians, and then we move into a series to start the year called Hell or High Water. Now that series was very on the nose there in trying to explain to all of us as a community there will be very difficult times in our lives. We know this intuitively, but we try to live like they're not going to happen. Rather, as a community, what we want to do is to prepare for those difficult times by developing a code. I want you to notice that these things build on top of each other. We start at square one, we move to square two, and we'll do that as we pursue the entire year together. The overall theme of 2021 for Vertical Church is take action, and we're pursuing how to do that well. Series 1, Hell or High Water, was about writing your personal code. If you missed that or you've joined our community after that series, I want to encourage you to go back and grab that, to listen to those weeks with this understanding. In order for you to face the difficult times in your life, the hellish times in your story, you must have a personal code. The way we talked about that is that you have to know what you're going to do, what you're not going to do, and you have to understand the generational impact of your personal code. If we're going to follow Jesus well, if we're going to do the things that He's called us to do, then we must have a code that guides us even and especially in difficult times. As we thought about what to pursue next, this series came to mind, Dead to Me. What a big series with huge implications. Because we know in our own stories as staff, and especially in my own life, the number one thing that blocks my personal growth are my grudges against other people. Man, it was difficult teaching, but it was also freeing teaching. To understand that those people who have hurt me no longer have to be my master, because Jesus has called me to forgive them. Even the most difficult, traumatic circumstances in our life, we can forgive and move past because of the power of God. So pay attention to the pattern here. We have to be a people of joy who are not anxious but prayerful and allow God to guide our lives. In order to do that well, we've got to have a personal code of things that we'll do and we won't do. In order to pursue that code and get over the first hurdle or barrier, we've got to make sure that we're not holding grudges against other people. Which leads us to our next big idea, the one that we're in the middle of right now, along obedience. What's this series about? It's simply about staying the course. It's simply about entering into the grind and being faithful to God for the rest of our lives. How we view our lives, not failure to failure, but up and to the right. That staying with God over a long period of time is going to allow us to be exactly who He's created us to be. This is just a short snippet of where we've been so far, but I really want you to tune in that these series are not independent, but are dramatically connected and build on one another. As you participate in the vertical community this year, whether you're in person or continuing to join us digitally, and by the way, both matter, I want to encourage you to view it with this lens. We're building a level of discipleship inside of this community. What does that big word discipleship mean? Just learning how to follow Jesus well, being His apprentice, being His student. I want to encourage you, even if you miss a week, to go back and grab that week. It's available on our podcast. You can actually tune in digitally while it's happening, second service. I just want to encourage you to hook in to the efforts that are going on at Vertical Church, because if you miss something, you're going to miss a lot of it. I'm encouraged at the state of our church right now, the state of our community, the fact that people are coming back together and the people who have to stay apart to be safe are exercising the courage to be able to do that. I want to encourage you as a community. Brighter days are ahead because this pandemic will wane and we will know when it's safe for more people to be back in the building together again. Until then, I just want to communicate to you from my heart as your pastor to you. We love you deeply. We care for you deeply. It's why we pursue the ideas that we pursue so heavily. It's why we're taking the risk that we're taking for so many of us. I love you guys deeply. I'm thankful for the ability to be able to be your pastor. We're headed for good things, and I'm excited that we're doing it together.
Cut.